don't want it too tight.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to explain?
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, it's time to put the your money where your mouth is and roll us an epic
All right.
doobie.
All right, well today, children, we're going to go over the standard rolling of a standard fucking joint. I mean, I shouldn't swear, sorry. The standard joint. Okay, there we go. We're keeping it PC there. All right, so first you're going to take your cannabis and you're going to put it typically in a grinder. A lot of old school rollers would have preferred to snip this or hand bust this, and that's fine. I like this. This is built, our grinders are sort of the original old school style space case, which came out when I was like 14. They cost like $100. It was stupid.
They were expensive.
They were so expensive.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time one of my buddies got one, and we were all like, oh my
What did you use before that when you
god.
first
Finger busting, scissors and shot glass.
yeah.
Hell, sometimes we didn't even have papers. We'd smoke it like off a rock with a magnifying glass when we were in school back when we were kids.
Or an apple.
Yeah,
An apple pipe, whether you cut it and put a little bowl
Yeah.
or just a one straight shot.
I had a buddy miss with the pencil once and shank himself in the hand. Yeah, it was interesting. So once you've got your cannabis there busted, I personally like to utilize filters. I don't have any filters on me, so what we're going to do, even though this normally drives me insane, is I'm going to rip the package here. And then we're going to go. I typically roll filter in. A lot of people will put the filter in out. I like to roll filter in because it provides a foundation that you can then shape the joint. There's many different ideas on roll. Well, at least the guy who's done it once or twice anyway. All right, so we'll take our little filter there. It's not great. The cardboard on this is a little thick, but that's okay. These are our papers here. They're unbleached, organic, non-GMO hemp. The gummy is even vegan friendly. Not that I myself am a vegan, but when our supplier was talking, like, you want your gummy to be vegan friendly? I said, well, yeah, let's be all inclusive. Why not?
Well, the environment is very important.
Yes, and no more horse glue. You know, I'll eat the horses, but you know, they can keep their glue.
All right, so you put it in as
Yes.
you're laying it. Okay.
So
I
once
haven't seen that.
you've laid it in, you're gonna take your filter. Now with that filter there, you've got like, look, I can go like this, go like this. It's got a good anchor to it. So then you're gonna go here and hold it in the middle. I'm just gonna grab my pack there. We're just gonna gently
So you use your own pack. I see.
Yeah, and so now
I see. I have not
tamp
used
it down. We're adjusting kind of the positioning in the paper. Now we're gonna then reposition our foundation. Boom. Start at your filter.
Okay, the
Slowly.
rolling aspect. Everybody has that hard time
Yeah.
like getting it tight. How we get?
Well, one, you don't want it too tight. So it's like, there's an old saying when I played pool a lot, we called it kissing Jesus. It's just firm enough to get the shot in, but it's not like crazy. So you're just slowly but surely going through. Then you're going like this.
I
Now,
find that's the
people.
hard part,
Show the
is
people.
doing the transition
yeah.
from
Okay,
getting it to stick on that back edge. and then
Exactly.
making it flip.
So the trick is you start on the filter and then you actually run your thumb along to get that edge in. And then once you get that in, you can go like this.
Oh, wow.
And then now you can go like this. You're perfectly positioned.
And that's how you get it stable.
I've been working
That's
on
right.
this for months.
Is this how you do it?
Yeah.
Is this how you do it?
Yeah, but it's this is a little bit better.
I shake it like a sugar pack. If I don't get it all together, I kind
Well, that's the trick. Is
pinch
if you
it at
if
the
you
end
properly
and then I
position it in the
pinch
paper and tamp it down, you actually all you have to do at the very end is maybe do that. If you want to twist it off, you can. You know, the old twist off here. And that way, when you put it in your pocket, you know your pocket doesn't get everywhere, and you can have it for fun when you get where you're going. And,
When you eat.
yeah.
Put it in
Yeah.
the eat.
And there we go. There's a joint.
That is a solid joint, guys.
Oh. Basic joint 101.
Mason, think you want to feel it?
Yeah, that's nice.
Do you want to feel his
Feel my joint, baby.
Yeah. Your joint is nice.
You know, and that's just a standard rolling style. You could do cones with a single pave, you could do a double decker, you can do a can Swiss long, which is one I invented when I was over in Europe. You can do a triple paper carrot, which starts off really quite thin and goes out like big like that.
Awesome. Well, let's definitely check it out and let's go take a seat.
All right then.
Water or black coffee?
We should get like a real cup.
I just got
Oh, I see.
I drink the flat.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
stigma of marijuana in 2020 in your expertise?
I mean, well, let's just say in the random stuff I know and not use that word. That's a bad word. In my humble two cents, I think a big part of it is we have to be aware of what's going on. I think that now the stigmas in one sense are breaking, but there's been a shift to a stigma that's currently, at least in Canada, going on as well with what I call Prohibition 2.0, right? Which is the government essentially taking control of things and pushing an industry out of itself. So, but basically, education would be the first thing, and people openly talking, I'd say, and being open with information. That'd be probably the first important step, I would guess.
And you do an excellent job with that, with your company, Pod Squatch. You do. When I was looking at your YouTube show and your website specifically, you've made your passion into a business that helps people. And literally, you're helping people grow quality greenery with your lights that you've created.
Yeah.
Internationally. I want to know more about that.
Well, I guess, I've always been passionate about cannabis. I was a young kid who was a stoner. I discovered pot around like 12 or 13 and fell in love with it right away. Didn't get high the first time and then started growing plants. I was the son of two priests and, oh no, marijuana's the devil, you're gonna hide that, And I think that's part of, fast forward to being an adult and, 2.5 years ago roughly when we started the YouTube and everything. It was in response to the misinformation on the internet, and it was hard to teach yourself to grow when I was a kid, let alone all the wrong information out there on YouTube and other platforms and stuff. And I had a few beers, and I got mad at the internet, decided to make a YouTube.
So that's how it all started.
Yeah, me by myself in the apartment, have a few beers, get mad at the internet. Yep.
Well, that, to me, sometimes the topic is not on point with what others believe in or whatnot, but people who do can watch you and be very inspired. You actually teach people how to safely grow cannabis, and you are breaking the stigma of what that is right now by putting yourself out there. You are also an actor, but how you're integrating it into your projects, into your characters that you put in with the films that you do, that's really cool. It's more of just a story. You're not just a guy that likes to smoke or whatnot. You've created an international business with it. That's really impressive.
I got sick myself. I had cancer many moons ago. So pot helped me in that, or at least I believe it did anyway.
How did it help you? Let's get into that.
Well, it was one of the most aggressive tumors they'd ever witnessed on a testicle before in the West Coast of Canada. I named him Larry the Ball Tumor. He took my favorite nut to the dark side of the balls voice. But he, in like the last week and a half before my surgery, I had to go to my mom's wedding, and they're like, "Nah, man, you can't travel. You need to you're fucking sick." I was like, "Fuck. Oh, sorry. I'm not missing my mom's wedding, and I'm not going to do that." So, but in the week and a half I was away, the tumor more than doubled in size. Once we found out Larry was there, he got very mad very quickly, and he went on the offensive. But the doctors was like, "We don't get how it didn't spread anywhere," and they're like, "What did you do?" And I said, "Well, I drank scotch. I smoked a lot of pot, and I swore at the tumor, and I said, 'Bring it on, Larry,' because positive energy is a really important thing, I think, to deal with sickness, and that was part of how I was able to, have Larry there. But hey, Larry, I'll hold you at bay, and then I cut you out, and I'm still good. So, haha, Larry, I win.
He was a part of you in your comedic kind of form of how you talk.
One of the first stand-up routines I did after kind of coming back into the scene a little bit was about cancer and one nut and how it kind of hyper accelerates your aging as a male, and it's weird, but it was fun.
Wow.
But to get back on point of the stigma thing, one thing I think that has been really cool for me, that was a little surreal through the channel, is a lot of the people that we have been helping, we have been teaching, are ex-cops with PTSD. So guys who had been busting people of the marijuana world for decades, and they are now in a legal state, maybe in the States, a lot of them, right? And they're giving it a chance. And so that was a surreal thing for me. I'm sitting here going, teaching these guys how to grow their own medical cannabis and trying to help them with that, or other people with pain addiction, or other people are veterans who've come back, and so people who've spent their lives being very conservative and very against this, or at least conservative in terms of pot, right? And now they're almost more pro-pot than all the friends I grew up with. And I'm like, well, this is weird, but I like it. Okay, well, new friends, let's go do this, right? And so the community, I guess, would be another thing you could say, which would be a big part of how we change stuff and get things changing is the community itself, and as it evolves, because there's a lot more people joining to these new ideas, these new movements, and you know, it's new to them. They don't know much, but they're open and they're willing to learn, or they'd like to try, you know, and so I think that's a big importance, really, there.
So your show that you do on YouTube, people can follow you on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
And how often are your shows?
Well, typically every week. I mean, leading up to 2020, we normally did anywhere from 1 to 4 live streams a week. When we have a current run, we do weekly updates on that. We do how-to videos. Our content is sort of shifted a little bit back and around, a little bit back and forth, depending on what gets released. But going forward this year, we want to do our cooking show. We're going to have at least 2 live streams a week that are scheduled shows, and they're actually scheduled. I'm going to stick to that and be a good boy. Because, stoners, right? Sometimes we're a little bit more loosey-goosey when we do things. But I'm going to try to be a little more structured in that regard. But yeah, the cooking show is going to be fun, and just sort of playing around with different ideas of content. Also, we're asking the audience, what do you want to see? What do you want to learn about? And
your audience are huge fans of supporting what you do, and in other videos they've stood up for you before. Let's go into that. When you were sharing that.
Sure. Well, yeah, sometimes you get a lot of people attacking you on the internet. It's trolls, it's how it works. And I'm certainly one of the more eccentric grow channels on YouTube.
The most, I'd say?
Probably,
yeah,
but I probably shouldn't say that,
most.
But yeah, no, we're definitely our own thing. We're a little different. I think that was one of the first comments we got from people was like, holy crap, I turned into your show, and holy crap, you're not a computer. I can watch this, you're making learning fun, and
yeah.
I mean, wow, you're a little dirty, but I mean, that was fun too. And I mean, it's like, and I started having like an old senior citizen audience, especially like old grandmas really like watching my show. So some of them were like really sick, and like I've got emails from like their, kids who are taking care of their parents, and like our favorite time of the week is like we sit down and we have a drink or we smoke a doobie and we watch your show. Wow. And my mom is really sick right now, but it's like the one time during the week she laughs, and I'm just sitting here floored by that. I'm like, because I'm just drinking beer and on my show and I'm trying to help and being me, just being weird and having fun with it, right? And so that was pretty crazy. I've got a lot of cool emails from people who are sick and have appreciate what we do, and that meant a lot to me. I never thought we'd get there. Again, it started with me just being a little mad at the internet, right? So, and then people showed up. But yeah, we have been attacked a lot of times. Sometimes we're accused of the different voices we do or characters that we do. I mean, I grew up watching Robin Williams. If you find me offensive, good, because I'm not doing my job as a comedian if you're not at least a little offended. Comedy wasn't something that wasn't just there to make you feel good at one point in time. It was a tool that took you out of your comfort zone, and that's kind of where it could help you grow. So we've been attacked a lot on that, but it's been pretty cool. We have a very diverse community of all different races of people, cultures, religions, orientations. For example, down the States, we've got anti-Trumpers, pro-Trumpers, people who would normally probably shank each other in a bar if they were having a drink together, becoming friends. I've made a lot of friends who are very pro-Trump, and other than that, like, for example, we get along just fine. Yeah. If we don't talk about that, but we've just accepted, they'll make fun of me, I'm going to make fun of them, and then we laugh and move on, right? So, but that's been pretty cool, having people kind of have your back on stuff. That was fun. And touching. The appreciation of people, I think, was the number one thing that did it for me was, wow, we're doing something. Like, there's actually a thing happening here now. And it's like, all right, well, then let's see where we can go with this,
Yeah, definitely good luck on your show. I hope that that you go forward with everything that you're hoping to achieve. Also, educating people. You want to do that as well this year?
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it. I mean, it started sort of as, we weren't a company. It was just a guy making a YouTube channel and teaching people the ways of the weak to divorce, as I like to call it. And, it's evolved from there. But I mean, the number one goal always was to teach as many people as we can to be self-sufficient and grow their own. Not that I'm a religious man or like the Bible that much, but teach a person to fish and whatnot, give them a fish, blah, 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 kind of thing, right? So also it's a way to help resist the big corporate takeover that's happening in our country right now.
I noticed that, yeah.
So if people know how to protect themselves and take care of themselves, then at least that's one thing I can leave or try to help along. in resistance to that, I guess, because I love cannabis. I always have been very appreciative and respected the art of what it was and how to grow it, and it's both a scientific and spiritual thing. In my opinion, I think a lot of stuff's been lost or will be lost if it just all these big super companies growing for people, and we allow what's going on right now to be the way that it continues forward. So
You're a bit of an activist, as you say.
Oh, but I'll have opinions, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I would say I'm an activist, and I currently think the government's full of crap, and I think the whole system is not a legalization, it's a prohibition 2.0, a set of draconian-based law systems of control to push an industry out of itself, to be fair. Read Bill C-45. We have a video actually on our channel where they first released Bill C-45, and I got a little upset about that. So it's a bit of a rant video, prepare yourself for that. But we break down some of the laws and punishments. Definition of draconian meaning very subtle, actual, breaking of laws, right, with very severe punishments. For example, you sell 31 grams of pot under Bill C-45, in theory, depending on the judge, you could go to prison for 14 years.
Yeah, it's a serious
Let's think about that for a second. 30 grams, let's say, looks like this. And this much more, 14 years in prison. Take that away. Well, I'm just going to give you a ticket and a cash grab,
They have
Or
their
if you
rules.
don't want to go to prison, you get a very, very big bill, and it's a total cash grab. It's just another way for the government to capitalize, and at least in my 2 cents on it, right? So it sucks. It's not a legalization in terms of how I would call it or think about it. But it's still positive. We're moving in the right direction. We're still moving always in the right direction. And, we just got to keep sort of steadfast and true. Talk as a community and educate each other. And
That's awesome, Josh.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. What do you think, Jeremy, about all this and what you do for helping people as well with mushrooms and microdosing?
Yeah, awesome. I loved hearing you talk, and I definitely think the education and sense of community is what's going to be continuing to push this forward. Because I was actually at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference at UBC a couple of weeks ago. They had people talking on all different subjects. Psilocybin mushrooms and cannabis was one of them. And one of the speakers there came out and said the best way that we can fight the corporation of legalization is to grow your own cannabis.
Yeah.
That is like the number one best way to do it, and easiest and most legal and makes the most sense is grow your own plants at your house, get a little tent, however you want to do it, and that's how you're going to fight back. So between education, the community, which you're doing through the YouTube and meeting the people, and then the growing, I think that's an incredible first step because and people are very inspired, and when you're growing your own plant, you're connecting with that plant in a way too, whether you want to believe that or not. So there's a lot more intention put into what you're smoking and like taking into your body.
well, you know where it comes from.
Yeah,
simply
that's
put,
for sure, right? You know where it comes from. You know what's
you know
in there.
They get it to it.
Yeah, like,
screwed up. It's like it's your fault, man.
yeah, right. And so if you're able to tune in and learn how to do this for yourself, as well as be building the education community around that niche community that is open-minded, that isn't as easily offended, that is open to receiving this and to tune in.
It's education
it's
as
super
well. It's good to
inspiring.
just
And you
learn
have
about
fun
it.
with
Yeah.
it too, right? Like
Totally.
when did like learning pot have to be this robot-driven thing of like sitting in math class like 2 + 2 is 4, divisible, blah blah blah. It's like screw that. Like, I'm gonna weed, so we're gonna do this, gonna cut it like that, we'll scrape it, make a clone. Like why don't you teach that way? I mean, it's more fun for people. It's more engaging. Not for everybody, but a lot of people enjoy that, I think, and so why not?
And
That's what he does on his videos, his pot squatch, is he's teaches people in a fun way.
Yeah.
And he does, he talks to his plants. You're 100% right about that.
Oh yeah, sometimes we interview them on the show. It's funny.
Of course, I'd hope you did.
Yeah. And some of them have attitudes, though. I'll tell you, over the years. Oh my goodness.
And so then, in relation to psilocybin mushrooms or magic mushrooms, as they're preferred to be called, sometimes we're kind of riding on the coattails of the cannabis industry. We really saw what happened in the open-mindedness of the cannabis industry, even though it is still very legalized and controlled. The awareness around cannabis is getting out there. There's a lot more people smoking, a lot more people growing. It has allowed that avenue, whether they're doing it correctly, it's still brought a lot of openness to it. There's a lot more people smoking.
Yeah.
A lot of people asking what or why, too.
What or why, right? So now that we've seen there's the benefits in cannabis, which was sought after to be have no medicinal benefit at all, like which we all know is
Not
not true. There's a lot of other plants and medicines that are proving in new scientific research across North America and in Europe as well the benefits of these on mental health.
So, Jeremy, let's talk about what are options for people who are not into cannabis potentially.
Yeah, I would say
What can they...
a newer industry that's forming is the psilocybin or magic mushroom industry. I would say that a lot of people who are smoking cannabis are already inclined to try the mushrooms or the psilocybin. There's most people who are open to smoking cannabis are open to trying psilocybin mushrooms, especially in a microdose form. So microdosing psilocybin mushrooms is a huge thing that's blowing up in North America and in Europe as well. There's a couple of different universities, Johns Hopkins and in Toronto as well, that are studying microdosing for a range of different mental disorders. So,
and what is it for people that have no idea what that even is, or the experience that they go through too?
So microdosing any substance is taking a subperceptual amount of it. So you could microdose caffeine, you could microdose the amount of THC that you get if you put it in 5 milligrams, you're taking, or 2.5, you're taking like a microdose. Microdose is usually 10 to 20th of an actual full dose. So when we're talking about mushrooms, a full dose is somewhere between 2 and 3.5 grams. So we're taking 100 milligrams to 150 milligrams of the substance. So at that threshold, you're not tripping, you're not getting high, you're not taking it and seeing things on the walls, or not able to walk properly or doing anything like this. It is fully subperceptual, or it should be. There's different companies that have different variations with less amounts and bigger amounts. But the whole point is for you to not actually notice what is actually going on in the background in your mind.
And how did you get into learning about all of this?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I had my first mushroom experience, and it changed. I grew up Christian, then I went from Christian to rebelling, knowing that I didn't want to believe any of that, to more of like an atheist. Went through all of that as well, and then took mushrooms one time, and was in my apartment, and there had been a butterfly that had flown into my solarium on my deck and died, but in perfect form. And I was, I don't know, 3 grams deep on these mushrooms, and I looked at this butterfly and I could just see all of the colors and lines and beauty and energy coming out of this dead animal. Like it was the most beautiful experience I'd ever had up until that moment. And from there, I started looking into the mystical experiences of psilocybin mushrooms and how that could have such an impactful moment in my life that made me actually break out of all of the old beliefs, patterns, and thoughts that I had previously. So, very powerful experience. Started looking at the macro doses, and there's a lot of treatment coming out, hopefully by 2022, 2023, for bigger doses of psilocybin in clinical forms.
Okay. In pill form, is that right?
It'll be in a pill form, but it'll be a heavy dose. It'll be guided by a therapist. It'll be in an intentional setting.
So that's
cool.
This is a thing that's happening. They're already testing this. They're on 2nd phase. They'll be on 3rd phase for actual psilocybin treatments. They have treatment centers being built out for this. I'm working with a company designing like intentional programs to keep the spiritual connection side to using the substance, instead of just going in for your session and then leaving, having a bit of, whether it's a meditation and some journaling and some reflection before and after the actual experience. So that's something else that I'm working on currently. But on a way to educate people and to build the community, and something that isn't as, can be as intense, microdosing is a really good way to start to open the conversation about using psychedelics as any form of mental therapy. So when you are taking a subperceptual amount, it's very small. You're not taking it every single day. You're taking it every 2nd to every 3rd day. There's a couple different protocols you can do. And what it's doing is, it's mainly, one of the main things is it's dampening a part of your brain called the default mode network. The default mode network is where we stay in our thinking consciousness thoughts all of the time, right? So like, if you're programmed to have anxiety or stress or always be rushed, and you walk out of the coffee shop and there's a beautiful sunset going on. You walk out of the coffee shop, but you're worried that maybe you got a parking ticket, and you're worried that you have to get to this dinner, and you're worried that you have to do this. Well, you're not even noticing the beautiful sunset or the beautiful air or any of your surroundings. that is when your default mode network is hyperactive. It's linked to chronic depression, it's linked to anxiety, it's linked to PTSD, it's linked to a lot of different addictions. What microdosing is mainly doing is dampening the default mode network, making it less active, so that when you step out of that coffee shop, before you think to stress about your parking ticket, before you think to stress about if you have to be somewhere or if you're late, you take a breath and you can look and you see the sunset and you see the clouds and you see maybe someone walking by that is laughing. You take a moment of presence. And from that moment of presence, there is a lot of healing and there's a lot of benefit to that, whether it's for creative flow, for addiction, for people trying to get off their antidepressants. There's a lot of people that, they're not at the extreme level. They've been taking antidepressants maybe irregularly. They're not fully there. They know they don't want to take it, but sometimes they need it as a crutch. We're having a lot of emails coming through because we have an education platform that we've been working on called West Coast Microdose. It's an education platform to share information about the latest research, videos, all this sort of thing. A lot of people asking, well, can I get off my antidepressants while taking microdosing? So dealing with clients in that way, and there is talks of opening clinics where people can go.
Sounds like there should be.
So people can go to a doctor and the doctor will assist them through a microdosing program, but they can't sell the microdosing to them.
Okay.
So the doctor is able to, the doctor is able to help inform them based on, their health, without actually providing them the microdoses, so they have to source it themselves from the best way.
What's the legalities of mushrooms and buying them, and what's going on?
Yeah, so
with that?
mushrooms is a Schedule 3 drug. So it is still illegal. Vancouver has come out and said they're not enforcing this. There's been a lot of articles already posted in Vancouver about this sort of thing, and there's a bunch of different websites that are selling microdoses of mushrooms now. It's cannabis, 7 to 10 years ago almost, maybe even in that range.
Very similar, yeah.
And they're just going for it, and they came out and said, we have an opioid crisis going on right now. We're not making it a priority to go after people selling mushrooms and cannabis, because I would hate to be a judge or anyone involved in arresting someone who's selling someone cannabis and mushrooms that is providing them actual medicine to their addictions, while they're not actually taking care of that crisis properly. So, if I'm ready to have to continue to fight for that point of view, I'm very there. And so, it's something that's happening. We're hoping that decriminalization will be happening in the next 2 years. I just saw today that 100 cities in America are looking to decriminalize plants and psychedelics. So cannabis through to mushrooms, through to some of the other plant medicines as well. So that's for both of the things going on, 100 more cities in the US is going to be really cool, right?
Well, yeah, and you're totally right. Hearing you speak about it in the sort of the early days of fighting for pot rights and all of that, it is kind of a 2.0 for the magic mushrooms, and it's interesting to hear you talk about it, because it does sound eerily similar.
It's extremely similar, and I was younger watching the cannabis thing go up, but knew I was just under that threshold of being able to make actual moves in that industry. I was just underneath that, but I've been watching it while I've been learning about psilocybin and mushrooms for the past 5 to 6 years. So I've been really thinking about this. Extremely similar, but what I think my personal purpose and one of my intentions is to try to find a way to not let the same thing happen to psilocybin mushrooms that happened to cannabis. I'm hoping we can learn from what you're going through and piggyback on that and slingshot into the future.
My advice to you would be, get up in the government's face when they're developing legislature. Don't let them go off to a back room quietly and come up with it. Demand to be part of the process, and you live in a democracy. In theory, you should have that right. I think if that had been included in the cannabis legislature, we wouldn't be up the river right now. So you know what? If you can, it's maybe a pipe dream, but fight for it. And just stay up in the grill, as it were.
I appreciate that.
No,
That's what I want to continue to be learning from. And we have some lawyers and doctors and scientists that have been back in the cannabis industry for the past 20 years. So they're starting to come on board as well now too. So we have a lot of information, a lot of research, a lot of law that is actually starting to be formed around this too. So the next, 2 to 5 years are going to be super interesting with what continues to happen with cannabis and what's going to happen with psilocybin mushrooms and the microdosing, because for now, microdosing is an incredible gateway into using an actual psychedelic in a small scale as a form of medicine. And if you want any more information, there's so much information online.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go online right now, there is tons of research and blogs. And
Where can we find you on social?
yeah, so if you go on www.microdosing, you can go microdose.me. So www.microdose.me is actually a survey going on that Paul Stamets, I believe, was involved in, and they are gathering collective data to be able to show to the government.
Oh, okay.
So they have an app. You can download this app and you can update your microdosing information. So they don't sell microdoses on there.
Yeah.
There's a couple good local companies that are putting out good products for microdosing. One of them is westcoast.microdose on Instagram. They're committed to putting out good content and value and information, and through there they have links to their sites and all that sort of thing too for further references.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things happening in this
Yeah,
space.
you make
so.
it sound glamorous and fun. I want to learn more.
And I like that you have your glamorous and your fun.
Dude.
And you know what? So you have guys talking about cannabis and mushrooms in a glamorous and comedic way and educational way, and that's what it takes, right? It takes the community, and some of the other things I do is I actually hold events and workshops based around community type events, whether that's meditation, yoga, breathwork, cannabis ceremonies, actually all kinds of things. But building that community, because when you have 100 people in a city that are all like, okay, I want to fight for this, or I want to uphold this type of standard, or I want to be this type of activist that supports being able to grow your own mushrooms and cannabis. I should have that right. And you have 100 people that are that committed to it.
It makes a difference.
Even just 100, it's a strong difference because no one is actually sticking up for much.
Oh no, that's the thing. Well, that's how our community on YouTube works, and we're international. We're on 506 continents, right? Like one of the weird things that happened the other day, even like someone posted on one of our videos that we uploaded, and was like, "Who was at such and such school in such and such state the other day picking up their kid?" I was picking up my kid, and then I saw a Pod Squash Growers Army sticker. But now there's like this local community. It turns out there's 10 of them down there in this town, and now they hang out, they talk, and they're working together, right? So like, yeah, and I'm sitting here going like, I don't even know what that means in America. Whoa, right? Like, and it's you're totally on the money there with if the community stays connected, if we all work together, we all share. That's how we get ahead. And to go back to the initial thing, the stigmas that we're referencing, that we're wanting to fight against or change, that's how we do it.
Yes.
Education, community, right?
Yeah, and that's what needs to be done. And I think through both initiatives, building that community, growing that community, and creating that value and content and support for people inside of that community, they're a lot more likely to, need to stand up or protect. If that's what happened basically in Vancouver, there was a guy selling mushrooms openly, and 12 people from different associations and backgrounds basically came and supported him with evidence, and they were like, okay, you're right, this isn't an issue right now. That was it, right? 12 people.
Yeah.
So,
no, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of pressure as it goes a long way.
oh yeah, it's a lot more fun.
Well, and especially, and if you look at it this way, how the world works anyway, I mean, when people get really, really upset, and you can use social media and show it in this one way, like, I mean, that is a way to get the quote-unquote system to back off a bit, or tone it down, like, oh no, I'm worried about this.
Because it's
let's
public.
just- yeah, so okay. Kind of a thing, right? And I mean, small victories, right? But it's all about those small steps, one brick at a time and one step after the other, really.
Yeah.
Not everybody is willing to put themselves out there the way you both do. So people who are interested and want to learn from you guys are definitely the people that should be open to like influencing others, because they can see you guys are okay, you're happy, you're doing what you're
well, it's
doing.
about making a safe space for people too. I mean, I think that's such an important thing, is creating a safe space for people in general, and giving a common forum that they connect through, and then you kind of have this whole new community of people of all walks of life.
Yeah.
Just here,
Yeah.
growing, feeling healthier, taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful as far as I'm concerned.
And that's what it comes down to. And I remembered something you had said earlier about how you're just being authentic, and how you being authentic is actually what's drawing the audience that is, tuning in because they actually appreciate who you are. And so authenticity, I think, in the coming years is going to be, or is huge. Being authentic is coming back. We went through a phase of unauthentic reality TV and
That's what we grew up on.
Yeah, that's what we grew up on.
Survivor.
People are they're done with that. They want people who are authentic. And so I think speaking your truth, right? And that's huge. And I think that the vibration of that is going to be continuing to draw following and attraction to that. And just like he wants the medicine and people to be happy and growing and all these things, it's same thing in anything to do with the mushrooms.
No, yeah. No,
Like-
well, that's what it was cool hearing you say about it, right? That's
It's-
totally what it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you can take it or leave it. Not everyone, it's not for everyone. Not everyone needs to try this. But I think that as long as people can provide the education and the actual open conversation that is needed around the subjects, I think that's all that I could want as someone that is activating for a substance. I just want people to have the choice and then to have the actual evidence on what this could or could not do for you.
Yeah.
And if you choose to do this, go for it. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine too. But just to have the awareness around these new substances, all kinds of
Oh,
things.
and
are
the
coming out.
option, right?
The option to have good communication and actual truth, right? We want truth. And I think anything that I want an activist for more would be for truth. We don't need you to tell us how much to do or how to do it. We just want the truth on if this works or what the actual science is.
Well, cool. You guys are both very authentic, kind, loving people who just want to share what you're passionate about. So, Jeremy and Josh, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It's been fun for you. Thank you.
This is great.
One for me, you too, as
Yeah.
well, my friend.
I'm intrigued and inspired.
I'm back at you too. I mean, one of the cool things I loved hearing when you sang, and I was sort of sitting there, I was thinking about when I was an early teenager and those good trips you'd have on shrooms, and then like, dude, that totally was like, but now there's actual science like
Yes.
working with this, like, man, this is so different than when I was a kid, like,
And I was Christian, right?
yeah.
So like
My
I was
parents are
raised
priests, I
Christian.
feel you.
Yeah, I was raised Christian, so I had to sneak smoking pot, same as you, when I was 14, 15 years old. It was flushed down the toilet if they ever found it, so I buried it outside and had my little homemade bong outside my house and knew that everyone that thought I was an idiot stoner. I was like, I'm not an idiot stoner.
No, yeah.
And I know that. And like, you are not accurate. It's not true.
No, yeah.
And then as soon as I did mushrooms, having that realization to be so powerful and then be like, whoa, like, that is also not true that those are making my brain bleed and causing horrible things.
No,
That's
right?
why people don't get into it because of the scary thoughts that are put out.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna bring Shireen in because
Awesome,
I
yeah,
came
we
up with
kinda
an
ended it.
idea. No, you guys are all staying there.
Okay.
I just came up with an idea like right now on the fly with Shireen. So Shireen's going to do a vlog, like a snap sort of compilation of Snapchat, and she's gonna do the microdosing. So she's gonna do the trial of it,
Oh,
and
cool.
she's gonna do like a review on it. So we're gonna bring her in.
Dude, can I just tell you how
Isn't that
magical
awesome?
this is right now?
Yeah.
We have a girl who runs all our affiliate marketing.
Oh yeah,
and
just keep going
content
because it's all being recorded.
Yeah, and last night we were over, I held like a mastermind at my place in Vancouver, and one of the first things that we had written down for content management and marketing was getting someone to vlog them actually.
Yeah. So she's so there you go.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, guys.
Especially after it's
Give me pig. Yeah.
Jeremy and Josh.
Yes, so I'm super excited with it. I have had mushrooms a couple of times. I've even tried microdosing. Funny enough, my sister actually microdoses. So I learned it from her. But a couple of days ago, I actually had a larger trip. It was for New Year's Eve. And it was the largest trip I've had because usually I've taken doses that are more for feeling. It's kind of in between microdosing and tripping. And so this first time, how it occurred was I was lying on my bed and I was kind of going in the past and I was looking at the whole decade and I started to get a little bit existential. Like I was going through a bit of an existential crisis of like, wait a minute, like this past decade, has anything actually happened? And then all of a sudden I get a text message from my friend and she was like, hey, did you want to come with me and my other friend to dose on mushrooms? Like, do you want to do that? And I was like, sure, let's do it. Let's do it. No, hands down. Like, I
It's
like,
New
this is
Year's
the moment.
Eve.
I'm like, let's do it.
Have I done anything?
Not
I know.
every day.
Because sometimes you kind of hesitate. You're like, who with who? What's going on? Because you always want to have a good
Safe
environment with good energies. And a lot of the time, if it's with strangers, you just don't know how people are going to react. So when she told me it was her friend or neighbor, I knew her neighbor, and I know, okay, this is going to be actually a good one. So New Year's Eve, got up, within 30 minutes got ready, got to their house, and I did it, and wow. I was like, woo! I was straight. And the thing is that everything just came to the surface. And when I mean everything, I mean happiness and pain and everything in between. And the thing is, I'm already a sensitive person. I already am very energetically sensitive. I'm, perception, sounds, smells. So when I was tripping, it was so much. It was very overwhelming, but it worked. And I would never, and it released everything. And I had a full ego death at the end of it, which is usually doesn't happen, as I've heard, the first time, but sometimes it can.
What's an ego death? For people who don't know.
Yeah. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, I can if you would like.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
okay. I love hearing you talk. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
That's like the ideal healing, eye-opening, mind-opening, heart-opening experience that you can have, right?
Absolutely.
And when you're grateful for that experience and you're present with that, whether it is pain or trauma coming up or love or joy or bliss, all is good. All you are learning from. But for an ego death, how I would explain that is you realize that everything that you have thought you have known that creates your identity, down to the color of your eyes, your hair, the way your nose looks, how your lips look, the clothes that you wear, what you identify as forms part of your ego. And when you're in certain states of consciousness, which you can get to without psychedelics, you can get to through meditation, through yoga, through breath work, but psychedelics, mushrooms in particularly right now, are a powerful tool to get to these states of consciousness. Everything that you thought you've known is now different. Everything that you used to identify as, you become is more part of a oneness or a wholeness. That you are not this image of you. You are not this image of a person that has brown hair. You are inside of that and one with that. Is that right? So, but your physical body is dying because your physical body identifies with things, but your consciousness or your soul does not. So when your ego fully dies,
you lose that sight. I had
you're
to.
fresh.
The only great way that I could have explained it is that I became a meat suit. As weird as that sounds.
This is the meat
This
suit,
is
and
the
then
meat
inside
suit.
is your
And
consciousness.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like the
That's what I
meat
call it
suit.
too.
So I was like, I sat there, and it was almost like it was a death and a rebirth, because at one point I felt like a fetus. I felt raw, vulnerable, and ready for the next step. And it also resurfaced a lot of past traumas that have occurred, and I obviously swept a lot of it under the rug, like most of us do. And so since I took the shrooms, even though I'm already someone who is sensitive, it heightened every single aspect of it, but it didn't stop me from being able to control it. I still know how to control it, but it's a lot more to control. And even and happiness is like being on 1,000 clouds, and pain is like being stabbed by 1,000 swords. and I'm going through something right now that I'm trying to figure out and understand, because everything has come to light, and I have definitely avoided it. And so it's a beautiful blessing. It is definitely, at some point you're like, oh my gosh, this is hard, but
Growth is scary.
it
at times,
is.
But that's part of the kind of exciting thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, obviously divinely timed. This is part of what I do. So part of what I do is I actually bring people through guided sessions. And then and what I'm working on right now is building the integration programs for people that are literally in the shoes you are in right now, and you have an actual PDF file document or a book that helps you integrate that experience back into life so you can benefit from it more quickly. Instead of it being, because, so this is the difference between macro and micro.
Yeah.
So it's because a macro dose can and will, depending on the situation, change and really make a ripple in your life. But if you don't have the mental, physical, and emotional growth, you've had the spiritual growth that's gone up here. But if you haven't had the physical, emotional, and mental health, you're out of balance still. So to build that integration back into the body, into the emotions, and into the mind is how you actually integrate that experience, like optimized.
So are you
right?
offering
Wow.
her this experience?
Yes.
Yes.
So I was gonna say
I'm
this.
ready.
So, yes, I would
Okay.
love to be in contact, right? Because that's what
Yes.
I'm doing right now. I'm a couple days away from launching a website to be guiding people through this. And just before, if you're talking about the macro and micro, what microdosing is really doing for you is if you want to think of that experience, but like stretched out over a longer period of time. If you're setting the same intention into a microdose as you went in kind of with that macros, like ready for change or unhappy or whatever that reflection was, and you still set that into microdosing, you're going to learn and integrate that knowledge, wisdom, information in a longer period of time that's a lot more graceful than like more of like a shake. Right?
Yeah,
'Cause that's
that
like
was a shake.
I guess the ego being like shook like
Yeah.
that, whereas the micro is just kind of like a little like pat, you know?
Yeah, tell me about it. Even with shrooms, this is really funny because, you know, at one point, once we came down, I was like, okay, we're back to being sober, everything's all good. And the next thing you know, you're like, no,
Yeah.
you get drawn back. And
Yeah.
that was the thing, is trying to not get drawn back. Because I'm like, I need to take a nap, and I close my eyes, I'm like, no, it's not gonna work out. So
That goes away with time.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, how long has it been? And we were all just sitting there like, is it happening again? And it happens in harmony too when you do it with people.
Yes.
So that's so
Everyone's
nice.
synced up.
Yeah, everyone's synced up. You're like, oh, here we go again. Let's go.
Yeah.
So how does it work for somebody that has never experienced that before?
How does it work from their perspective?
Well, what do you do with them to prepare them? Like, let's get a little insight to
Yeah,
what
so
you
there is a whole organization that's going on right now on how to train people how to specifically do this. There has been shamans doing this for thousands of years.
Yeah.
This isn't like a new thing. It's new to us here, but if you go elsewhere in the world, especially down to the Amazon, they've been doing this kind of stuff for years and years and years and years and years. So what my intention is going through this is to be educating myself the best that I can through the courses that come out, but also being the bridge, because there's things that I understand and I feel and I know intuitively that a doctor or a therapist has never ever experienced in their entire life.
and they say is bad or
And
whatnot.
it's bad.
Yeah.
And the perspective as well. But I also don't know everything that they know. So there's a lot of learning that's going on right now. That's why there's so much research that is being done, is so that we can bridge that gap, because there's a lot of people doing this. There is an option for psilocybin treatment coming available, but the one distinction is that they're only testing psilocybin, which is extracted from the mushroom. But there's 5 other compounds that offer incredible knowledge, information, and healing as well.
Well, as is in
Full
cannabis,
spectrum is
right?
same thing.
There's over 468 psychoactive chemicals and cannabinoids, as well as terpenes, like there's so much.
THC and
out there.
CBD.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a buddy who's into a business
Yeah.
exploring all the rest, exploration based.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Well, the reason, like for example, every time I ever tried like an actual distillate was created using the pH differential to separate pure THC out and make a distillate on a distillate machine, and then I tried it. It tasted nice.
Yeah.
But it's like everything that I loved was gone. It was just THC, and I was like, something's missing. This is not what I do. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? Keep your weird Star Trek thing. Normally, I like the Star Trek thing, but
Yeah.
this, I'm gonna go back and do it. Okay? You have fun. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Right?
Same
You know,
thing,
yeah.
right? And so there's a lot of research, there's a lot of learning that's going on. Apparently there's some guy in Florida who just found a way to standardize growing mushrooms, so there's the exact amount of psilocybin in the mushroom.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, what do you mean by standardization on that?
How much actually grows in. So that was one of the barriers, was that the government's
To
never
control
going to
it.
approve because there's so much variance, right? But if you could standardize how much psilocybin is in an exact weight of mushrooms, then you can start to use organic material, which would be very.
But-
So there are movements being made
There
now.
is
Wow.
tons of movements. Get on the computer, decriminalize nature. Look up Oakland, what they've done in Oakland for decriminalizing psychedelics. In Denver, Colorado, locally in Vancouver, there's all kinds of different psychedelic societies and decrim movements. San Francisco. Yeah. In San Francisco, I made a connection with a guy who's making a film just on microdosing right now
Okay.
with some of the biggest guys in the industry. There's a movie that came out called Fantastic Fungi, documentary again about not just psychoactive mushrooms, all kinds of mushrooms and the mycelial networks that are everywhere around us, and how connected they are, and how connected we are, and how similar we are as beings to them. And then there's also a movie called Dosed, is a documentary of an ex-drug addict who started using microdosing and psilocybin and then some other forms of plant medicine to curb her addiction. A full actual documentary following her around Vancouver.
I've even heard that the FDA recently approved
Breakthrough therapy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a breakthrough therapy for depression.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research that is in psychology, like it's
Tons.
full. But that's why when he said UBC, because my friend and I are both were in psychology, and she was in UBC, and they would always have talks, even SFU, and I never got to go to any of them because I was so busy. But it's been a while where medical research
Yes.
has been going on, especially
20
for
years.
mental health. Yeah,
20 years.
but that's still new in the industry, in the scientific industry, in the medical industry, because it takes 20 years for a medication to be approved to actually be seen on the market. So it's something that's exciting, and
Well, it would have taken 20 years, but because of the FDA giving it
Yeah.
breakthrough status, that means that the FDA is fully cooperating in making, looking at science-based evidence with an open mind. So they have 3 people on their board right now that are saying, okay, you provide us the data and the science to back this up, and we'll believe you. So that's gonna.
That's good.
That means there's a crisis, and that means that the exponential increase that's going to happen in the industry and cannabis with it too, if it goes legalized across.
I actually have a question for you. If
Yeah,
you don't mind.
yeah.
It's on along the lines. We're hearing you speak about talking about making consistent, for example, levels of chemical compounds with magic mushrooms. Hearing the way you spoke about it, I kind of had this thing, because pot, that's been sort of something similar to that. I think we need to abandon the notion of finding a way to stabilize it. What we need to have, though, is rather an idea about infrastructure and identifying each medicine. For example, with cannabis now, it's a little wonky, but for example, let's say hypothetically we weren't in current legalization. Let's say, so anyone who had a ACMPR could then grow their medicine, right? And let's say you were the government facility. So I would bring my stuff in, you test that, right? So you give me a written report, exactly, 1, does it meet safety regulations? 2, what's the actual biochemical breakdown? So then that would give us a place to sort of put it into the market to help people, rather than trying to find a way to play with the plant or the fungi too much to try to stabilize it, because you're actually bastardizing the nature of what it is naturally. So why don't we allow it to be natural the way it is, and then find a way in terms of the system to identify what it is, and then put it on terms of, maybe one could call it even a spectrum or a scale in terms of what we know, or as the knowledge grows in terms of the breakdowns. Because I think that's the thing I'm scared of on your behalf, is the way you're speaking, you're going to lose all these nuanced fungi, because I know magic mushrooms quite well myself over my personal life. So I know them quite intimately into terms of different fungal species and the beauties and differences between what they do. And that kind of thinking scares the bejesus out of me, as it were, when you think that way, because it's not just the one experience, it's not just the one tool, it's a toolbox. And if we're not careful with cannabis or with fungal things, as your industry develops as well, and you did ask about, we're a few years ahead of you guys, like, what do you think about that? And just be careful not to lose what things are. Right? Think of the rainforest. Every day we lose these plants that could do things, right? We got to protect the ones that we do know we have now, especially when it comes to legislature and how we build the industry to handle it. What do you think about that?
I mean, really appreciate you sharing that.
Association.
I really
I'm
appreciate
just
you
curious.
sharing that. I have no idea how he's doing it yet. I don't know if there's alteration or however he's doing it, whether it's like a depth of bag. I have no idea. But you gave me a very good perspective on what you've seen happen, and I want to make sure that
And
that
I'm
does
not worried
happen.
about him. Let's put
Yeah.
it to you this way. One, he's brilliant. He's thinking creative out of the box. Let's
Yeah.
like that. What I'm saying is maybe in terms of when we were talking earlier about the governing body,
Yes.
right? And these new laws and how does it work? Maybe that system could be implemented for you guys. We're kind of behind the 8 ball right now. We got to kind of bash down some walls to do some things, but maybe you guys could propose that system to the government.
The slingshot is getting everyone to grow their own instead of the corporations trying to grow it.
Well, that'll work too. I mean, and
But
it's just
do you
pretty
know what I'm
simple to make
saying?
magic mushrooms. Right?
Well, no,
But, yeah.
and there's a bunch of formulas right now that you can grow your own in bags. So
Oh, yeah.
basically, you order a bag, and it comes with the liquid culture and then the mycelium, and in 4 to 5 weeks, you're able to pick your own mushrooms and dry them out. So
Yeah.
that's already a
Yeah.
thing that's happening.
It's a self-contained container, I like
Exactly.
it. But it's in a bag, right?
So I'm just saying, curious that you said that, and then thinking about slingshotting instead of it going up to here to stabilize, mass produce, just going directly to
Yeah.
encouraging people to grow their own medicine.
Yeah.
Well, because I've been trying to figure out where we
For the
went
most
wrong.
part, we
So
can say that. Yeah, well, we should talk because I'd love to learn and make it. Yeah. What the hell happened?
crowd, this is not what we wanted. William Wallace, are you here? Please help.
I don't know how accurate the statement was, but I did hear somewhere at a conference recently that in BC, 95% of people are still smoking black market cannabis, and only 5% of people are smoking from the actual government.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
why
just
they
want to
like
say
the-
that as far as any province or grouping of people talking community-wise, like, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're doing it.
Dude, oh yeah. Like when I was a kid back in the day, and I remember one of the most influential books I read as a young, kid in BC learning to grow. I was maybe 14 at the time when I read this book. It was called West Coast Smoke, and it was talking about the history of pot, both in Canada, especially in BC though. But at that point, when this book was written, over 20 years ago,
He's
it was
20.
it was a $90 billion a year industry in Canada. The government didn't even sell $1 billion this year and operated at a functional loss at $167 million. First of all, how the hell do you lose money selling weed? In high school, you had shit weed, you cut it with like fucking dirt to make it heavier.
Hay.
Hay, it's oregano, you know what I'm saying? And you're still selling a .8. Motherfucker, you sell it for $15, right? You're still selling that shit, baby. You're like, man, you gonna make money anyway. But it's like, how the fuck did the government, well, it's the government, I guess. I mean, I swear
Well,
a lot, but like,
Well, what do you expect? Blue Dream, that strain is a very popular strain, okay? And usually you get it for 30 to 35 per eighth. At the government store, or the store, it was a private store that carries government legal weed, it was selling for $85.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Actually,
I was in
$85.
Vegas in August, and I was paying $20 American for a gram of weed that I would call like a mid to higher grade, not a quad. First,
like a Dubs or
Like,
something?
no, it was like a trip.
Okay.
It was
Low
like a trip.
Mid
It was a
trip?
low trip.
Low trip.
I'd say it was a low trip.
Like 20%.
Yeah.
$20 American, $25
Oh, my.
Canadian for a gram,
Oh,
and I was like,
actually,
I
yeah.
picked this up for $1.
Yeah.
like.
It's so
I-
crazy.
Well, can we talk for a second about
pre-rolls
the
as
Canadian
well.
government here for a second?
Yeah.
Did anyone see, I think it was 4 days ago, 5 days ago, when they released what Hexco, I believe it was, out. No. It was the Whistler Cannabis LP. Can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Pemberton there?
Yeah, but they're charging $150 for live rosin for a gram.
Yeah.
Like for example, like I made 3 grams of Rockstar rosin yesterday. It's beautiful, it's amazing, but by government prices, that's $450.
Yeah.
It's like, and hello, what world are you doing math out of? Like, it's just not how the industry works, and that's part of why they're all failing is because they think they can make it
Yeah.
work a different way now. They're like, we're gonna just throw out 50 years of how it worked and what people know and like and want,
And the price point.
yeah, and
They
the
really
price
don't wanna
point
change
and like.
that, yeah.
But
It's
it's
silly.
even like the private stores, they're struggling to try to afford buying the government weed, and they're saying
Yeah.
that there's not enough, competition going around. But the thing is what this is doing is driving that black
Oh,
market
it's-
or gray market.
It's incredible.
Actually,
no
we
one
need
wants
to
to
defend
be
the
in a
gray
pill
market,
bottle.
by the way. Let's just get that straight, at least from my 2 cents.
yeah.
The big companies are actually, for many of the companies, if you actually follow the money back, my lawyers and I have worked on things, it is owned by people associated with large organized crime in Canada. That is a proven
Yes.
fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we call the black market and the gray market, and I get passionate about this
Yeah.
because these are hardworking Canadians. These are
Yeah.
people who are not criminals.
Yeah.
80 to 90%
Of
of
course
what
not.
our government
Yes.
is saying is this. These are your friends. These are the people living on the street. These are the people who know what we're talking about. We spend our whole lives doing them and helping people and learning about it and caring about it. And we voted this in. We were the ones who made up the vote that brought it through a big part. And then we got totally stymied up the river, right? And really, like, what the government calls criminals are actually farmers, business people in Canada,
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
know, it's
right?
ridiculous.
I lost. Yeah, I had
It was
invested
more
money in
legal
certain
before it was
things, and
illegal.
guys getting their licenses pulled, and then
It's heartbreaking.
the corporation they go bankrupt, and the corporation
Yeah.
comes in and buys up their
Sweeps it
greenhouse,
up for
changes
pennies, right?
changes a camera or two, upgrades the door, and all of a sudden they have
Oh,
a
it's
full-on
great now.
facility.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
know.
Oh, thank you.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
It
the
was
quality isn't that.
personal for me too.
Yeah.
It's not even that great. The quality, like
Oh, it's
I,
crap.
I opened it and I had shake. I'm not joking. It was bottom of the
Oh,
bag
yeah.
shake, and I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Not a
That's why
single
I don't.
trichrome head on there.
Yeah,
There's
that's why
weird
I
yellow
don't.
crap on it. You're like
Yeah.
looking at it through a jeweler's lamp. Like, I've never seen that on pot. And I've been growing for 20 years. Like,
So I order from delivery by just a regular old Joe
yeah.
that comes to my house
Yeah.
and hands me over my weed, and
Yeah.
it's so much better.
I know
than
Grandma Betty down the street, man. That girl, man, she make the best tomatoes in the summer. You know, she make my sauce. But then that old granny know how to grow weed, man. That girl's weed, man. It's like, fuck, man. She had $10. Then my buddy down the street, Bob, you know. But like, Grandma Betty, man, she's good. I like
Yeah.
her.
I'm happy. And I think the more openly we talk about this kind of stuff
Yeah.
too, we're giving raise to it. We're giving action to it. We have reasons for why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we need to continue to endorse that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
Well, if we the people stand together, right?
Yeah.
Like, to be fair, I mean, not to sound like, you know, let's not burn the system down. Let's maybe just try to change it. But it's like, if we the people stand
100%.
up, the government and the powers that are governing us, like in theory, we put them in power there. Like it's like we're still supposed to be able to say what we want. And if we all stand together and just say, hey, okay, let's all this. We're still okay with you taxing it, but hey, maybe we can all retalk this one, you know? And I mean, so let's exercise our power as citizens and learn the power of just standing together. I think.
and it's happening.
Breaking those stigmas,
Totally.
right?
You
guys-
It's
It's hard
happening
today,
because
but-
there doesn't have to be how it's ever been before, but as long as we can have open discussion about
Yeah.
how things are going, then we're going to advance the civilization a lot quicker
Totally.
too. They know things that we don't know based on, like, there's probably some side effects of, you know, psilocybin mushrooms and cannabis. There's probably side effects
Yeah.
that some of us never knew
Yeah.
that are good to know about, but then
Totally.
show all of the benefits as well too, right? Because we know everyone can make
It's
their
more
own
of a
choice.
collaboration,
It's
right?
a collaboration,
And,
right?
Well, if you think about trying to make any creative project, I mean, as an actor and comedian as well, like you work with a group of people to create a project, right? It's a collaboration, always is, right? Everyone brings something to the table, and they're all these parts are just as valuable. Right now, that's not what's happening in terms of the cannabis industry in Canada. So that's why I said earlier what I did. Just
Yeah,
stick to your guns and,
yeah,
and be respectful, stand firm, but do not just let them do it.
yeah.
You gotta.
Be
you
smart.
gotta
Don't
be
just
part of
take
it.
the first offer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
You-
okay.
you stand with
That
them
was-
and be like, hey, maybe we need to sit down here and push for that. Push for someone, or at least one person, to be part of that discussion committee that makes
Okay.
legislature
Yeah.
to represent you guys.
You know,
That's what I would recommend.
I have one more question.
Appreciate
I think with what you guys are doing, trying to break that stigma, 420. I think that is the time to do something for the people to be on the streets, whatever they're going to
Well,
do.
today's
protest.
420. Actually, today's the first 420 of 2020. Actually, so there's a lot of 420s just statistically happening this year. So today is the 4th of January.
Yeah.
Of 2020. So it goes
Wow,
01,
okay, I didn't
04,
think about that.
2020. So today's actually we're
I think
recording this on
Selena
the first
planned that.
420.
She's smart. She's our producer.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
whole
in April.
nother-
Oh, yeah.
Like it's like everybody be getting really high this year,
Yeah.
so let's all take pictures so we remember it, okay? Man.
But what do you guys think about this year's
There-
420? Like, do you think this is the time for people to make that movement, post, start talking about it more?
I think the time is now. I
Yeah.
think the time is right now, and I think the time is throughout 420, and I think the time is sharing our voice. We have our
Yeah.
phones.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have a megaphone to the entire world.
Yeah, we're walking computers.
We're walking computers to share what we want in our lives and
Yep.
how that makes us feel. So
Yep.
I want people to get up and have conversation. Like I said, there's no push for anyone having to do this or not do this or growing their own. It doesn't matter. People just need to have all the evidence that's out there. And then if they want to continue to be free to share that, And for that to be known to other people, it's sharing your voice.
Well, I think a big part of what we have now in 2020 with the tech that we do have, like back in the day, not me, I'm not that old yet, but if you think I look that, oh, that hurts. But those
It's
were
the beard.
Yeah,
It's
the
the beard.
forebearers of the generation, for example, cannabis rights and the prohibition on cannabis and fighting for cannabis rights in the early hood days of it, right? Like, I mean, it was by and large for everyone a time where you stood alone. You maybe had a friend or two, but they did not have phones, they did not have the internet, they did not have this type of connection, this ability to quickly share ideas or unify or stand, right? So at the end of the day, it's different now because you don't stand alone if we build a community.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to persecute someone that is a singular or one or two.
If they don't,
right?
if they don't
Hang them
do
out
it,
to
you
dry. But if a whole community
Yes.
shows up,
True.
it's a lot harder to drag them away with 1,000 cameras, 10,000 cameras watching.
Yeah.
And that is where a power that we do have as the people right now, I
Yeah.
think, that I don't think we fully understand it yet, but I think we'll get there, hopefully.
I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that the people that I want to be working with going forward is people that are saying the same things in the cannabis, right?
Yep.
That we want to see this go forward,
Yeah.
and we want to see this and build these communities of people that are sharing evidence, fact, truth, and authenticity.
It's about empowering people, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
To
it
put it
is.
simply, in general, it's
Yeah.
about actually empowering the people of our world.
Yeah.
And starting to unify a way that, you know what, because you know what, the man, the system, they'll never empower us. But if
Yeah.
we communicate with each other, work together, then that works.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much for sitting and talking, Shireen, Jer, and Josh. Amazing
Thank you.
that you inspired me today. This is a new topic for me. And for the audience, they're going to have a hoot and a holler watching it. And I hope they all go and follow you guys' social media
Yeah.
and to learn more from this conversation from today.
My the best place to find me is on Instagram, Jeremy J Hoffman, HOFFMANN on the end, 2 N's. That's the best place. I have a website coming out within a couple days as well, but that's the best place to interact with me.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Shireen, what about you?
Well, I'm just a layperson. So, Sherdog with SHERRDAWGG. I've had that nickname since I was 17. But if you have any questions or anything related to the psychology of marijuana, you're more than welcome to contact me through the DMs.
And we'll have you back. We'll have you back with the results of your microdosing.
Oh yes, I'm
Oh,
super
yeah.
excited to do
The
that.
results, yeah.
Yes, I will be back. I'll definitely be vlogging it. I love doing
Did we
that.
introduce that?
Well,
Wait.
I was trying to. Are you gonna do maybe the therapy sessions, and is she gonna do maybe like a whole?
Yeah, did you want to end this part of, or
Sure, we can do something.
however you
separate
wanted?
after. Yeah.
Mhm.
However, I wasn't sure. I saw you.
Sounds
I wasn't sure.
good.
Yeah.
I was like,
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like,
I knew it.
I'm trying to flow too. I was like, we didn't talk about that. Okay, so we could do it separate and
Yeah.
edit however you do your thing.
And
Awesome.
then how do we get a hold of?
And then how do we get a hold of you, Josh?
oh, well, technically right now our number one platform would be YouTube. We're Pot Squash Growers on YouTube. We have an Instagram. We're Pot Squash Growers on there. I am technically on other things, but I don't understand how to use them. So Instagram and YouTube. There will be a culling possibly in February of my kind off of YouTube. We are doing everything we can to survive that and not be persecuted, but it might happen. So we will be at least at first on the weed tube. But you know what? We're an international company, and I'm a dink, so we're not going anywhere. Remember the name Pot Squash Growers. That's what really is important, I guess. There. So
Nice.
Potsquatchgrowers.com is the website, though.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much from Typhoon Team.
thank you, bye.
Silence.
Yeah, this is cool.
Very cute.
Awesome. So, Celine had told me that you were thinking about trying to, or starting a new microdosing program. And so I thought it'd be a really cool opportunity to kind of start tracking that with you a bit. So, finding you a locally sourced, like good quality microdosing product would obviously be the first thing we could do.
Okay.
But then actually tracking how you're feeling, and like I do this with people through other journeys and meditations and coaching. So I'm able to learn that experience and really track how you're feeling, what you're noticing, give you some examples of some journaling to listen to, some reflection periods in your day, some meditations to try out. Yeah, I'm just curious if you'd be into that.
Yeah, of course,
Right?
absolutely. I'm all about it. I'm really excited. I've been thinking about it for a while. So I mean, this is the time. It's now.
Yeah,
Now is
It's now.
it. Yeah.
And also with your macrodose too, just being able to learn some tools to help integrate that back into your everyday life as well as you go on the microdosing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I want to utilize because I know it's precious information and energy that we can really, work into blooming it out and being able to actually use it and conceptualize it
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a regular human being, it's hard for our brains to really grasp what we've unlocked behind it, and in order for it to actually be successful and useful and practical and contribute to anyone's journey is to really work on it. And I am so ready, so down, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
definitely check it out. And we're gonna be recording it and
Yes.
making sure that everyone knows how and what's going on to make sure that they come with the journey as well
Yeah.
and be able to understand how it is. And that's it.
He's the best guide for it too.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
held my
that's-
hand for a trip or two.
And that is the vision. I was actually talking with a local content creator last night about the different initiatives that we wanted to start to put out around education around microdosing. So videos of people doing it every day, vlogging it, having people that are going on hikes in nature, people that are meditating, people that are working out, and creating a lot more educational content around what is going on right now. So I'm excited to dive into this.
People can
and-
relate.
Yeah, right. Get it so people understand and they can relate to you. So
Awesome.
Will Shireen be receiving any counseling during this experimental journey?
yes. So okay, thank you. With this, I would love to offer my services of being able to actually listen, coach through that as well with the psychedelics and without as well. Just to go through and start to optimize and fully integrate a lot of the lessons that are going to be learned from the medicine.
Absolutely, I'm open to that.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Awesome, guys. That's great.
Nice.